Wait, hear me out. I love FNAF, okay? But when I look back on the franchise, one game in particular sticks out to me in a way that I don't like. I mean, come on, I can go back and play pretty much any game in this franchise and get something out of it. FNAF 1 has some classic nostalgia and some of the best fear factor in the series. FNAF 3 is a really satisfying series of mini-games to complete. FNAF 4 has some of the most interesting gameplay and sound design of the entire franchise. Sister Location has a good story, FNAF 6 has some interesting mechanics, FNAF World's fun, FNAF AR is at least dumb fun, and low-key has some of the best jump scares in the series. Like, those are crazy. Help Wanted is a VR treat to play. Even Security Breach at its worst is funny. But when I go to play FNAF 2, frankly at this point, it's only to get footage. Because I don't think there's anything else to be gained from that kind of adventure. So slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake some spicy takes. And just a reminder, as if it needs to be said, everything in here is not a matter of opinion. In fact, it's a fact. I'm always right. Warning. This is a joke. Obviously, this video is my opinion. Warning, this is a dumb joke. I've always been told that if you have to give bad news or critiques, you should do it in a compliment sandwich. Essentially, say something nice, then say your critique or negative thing, and then say something else that's nice. That way you soften the blow. So, I'll start with the thing that I like about FNAF 2. FNAF 1 was great in a lot of ways, but one of the things that really hooked people, myself included, were the little hints of lore we got throughout playing the game. Newspaper clippings here and there, hints to why these animatronics were actually attacking us in the first place, tidbits of a deeper story, just enough to get us intrigued. And then when FNAF 2 came around, Scott realized he should double down, and double and triple down he did. We got bombshells of lore in this game, still deep and mysterious, but just as interesting. Foxy Go 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 showed us the result of what would likely be the missing child incident, 5 dead children at a location with a Pirate's Cove, a location we currently weren't in, as well as a culprit, this purple guy. We're also introduced to the puppet in this mysterious minigame, Give Cake to the Children, where we see a child get killed outside of a pizzeria. We've never heard anything about this before, but it ends with the puppet jump scare. Even more confusing, we get Save Them, showing us that children were killed at this establishment too. And finally, Give Gifts Give Life, something that leads us to the idea that the puppet is the one giving life to these animatronics. But what's going on here? What's behind the curtain? These minigames were perfect to give us just a little bit more lore on this series without giving too much away. And the fact that they would randomly show up upon deaths made them even more so just little morsels of story that we craved. I remember when I first played this game begging that I would get one of these minigames every time I died. It was just perfect. Also, I'm not sure if it counts as a minigame, but the little in-between night cutscenes that are controllable, where you see the FNAF 1 location from the eyes of Freddy, these are great too. It's a perfect moment of quiet with just scary ambient noise in the background, looking around these creepy location as things change between nights and get more and more intense. It's a great moment of horror, a nice quiet, scary part. Alright, that's our compliment topper. Now let's get into the filling. One of the biggest fear factors in a FNAF game is the ambiance. The real trick of FNAF is taking things that on the surface aren't scary, but in the right lighting and with the right setting, they become frightening. Make them stare too long, bring in that uncanny valley. Take Lefty from FNAF 6 for example. This guy is not scary. Like, maybe he's a little off-putting, but by all accounts, this is just a mascot. You see him on the character select menu and he's just kind of there. But then you meet him in the salvage minigame, and you see and hear this.
It is your job to complete the maintenance checklist before claiming it as salvage. Or, if you choose to, you can throw it back into the alley where you found it and forfeit payment. Please make your choice now.
That's terrifying, and it's the core of the FNAF franchise, taking something outwardly friendly and making it terrifying. So how does FNAF 2 do this? Well, it kind of doesn't. It sort of forgot to. The visuals in your office are pretty bright, and sure, you get these dark and admittedly foreboding hallways in front of you, but to look at them you have to use your flashlight. So everything you look at gets lit up completely, and you just see the full animatronic. No weird shadow, no spooky angle. They're just there. At best, they're far away, and at worst, granted, sometimes they can be in your office, but is that much better? For the Withered, mostly, yeah. Freddy and Bonnie are great. They're huge and imposing, and even though they're fully lit up, the flickering lights and the fact that they're huge make up for that fact. Withered Chica is another story. I'm sorry, but the T-posing chicken isn't scary. And it's really not the model itself that's mostly the issue, it's how it's used. Look at Ultimate Custom Night's Withered Chica. This looks great. Well, bye. It honestly saves the design for me. For a game as not scary as Ultimate Custom Night, this is good horror. This, on the other hand, is a default Garry's Mod rig. Okay, fine, but what about the sound? Sound is like FNAF's best feature. FNAF 1 had such a creepy ambiance and the breathing behind your monitor. FNAF 4 had such a compelling soundscape to it. Surely FNAF 2 fares well, right? Well, there's this sound, and it's pretty good, but what is it? An echo or something? I'm not sure. Well, at least we have silence. At least it's a quiet noise. All right, we gotta talk about this. God, this game feels bad to play. Okay, let's be really honest with each other. The challenge from FNAF comes from learning the pattern you have to do in order to survive. Granted, that's a lot of games, but it's really apparent in Five Nights at Freddy's. FNAF 1 is check Foxy, stall Freddy, check your doors, move on. FNAF 3, put Willy in the corner, keep him there. FNAF 4, check your doors, check Foxy, check bed. So on and so forth. You figure out what you have to do, and you do it to the best of your ability, adjusting for your environment. FNAF 2 must have a really complex one then, right? I mean, there's 10 animatronics. Surely there's a lot of things you need to balance to survive. Well, what about their movement patterns? Surely you have to track them on the cameras to see who's going to approach you, right? Well, at least they have different mechanics, so when they approach you, you have to treat them differently. The gameplay loop in FNAF 2 is frankly abysmal, because it's a game full of the same with the facade of difference. You essentially have one animatronic split up into 8, Foxy and the puppet. 8 animatronics all the same? Surely not, right? You have the toys, the Wizards, Mangle, Balloon Boy. They all do different things, they're the same. Sure, Balloon Boy doesn't kill you, he just makes it so Foxy will kill you. And sure, Mangle hangs out before Mangle kills you. But how do you prevent every single animatronic, besides Foxy and besides the puppet? Just mask. Bonnie in the vent, mask. Someone in your office, mask. Mango outside, mask. I get that that's kind of the point of the gameplay of this game, but the fact that the only difference between 80% of the roster is what happens if you don't mask is kind of disappointing. Sure, the Wizards you have to wait until they're in your office and everyone else is at the vent, but is that so big of a difference? It's just not a really satisfying mechanic. It's a waiting game. Well, what about Foxy? To make him stop, you have to flash him in the hallway so he goes away. You know, flash the hallway with your flashlight. The thing you constantly do anyway to check who's coming. So really, as long as Balloon Boy didn't get you, Foxy's not an issue at all. Okay, fine. What about the puppet then? Yes, what about the puppet? I'm not the first to say this, and I won't be the last. Hell, Theft King said it recently, Phil Morg made a whole game out of it, but the puppet and the music box in FNAF 2 sucks. It simultaneously causes and represents like most of the issues with FNAF 2. It's not interesting, and it's not difficult. It's tedious, and it's fast, which can sometimes feel difficult. You don't have time to get scared in FNAF 2. There's no time to do anything. As soon as night 3 comes around, the only things you have time for are to wind the music box, flash your doors, repeat. And that's all you have to do. There's a whole restaurant filled with cameras with interesting angles and good, scary renders of these characters, right at your fingertips, but you have no incentive to look at them. What's worse, the game actively punishes you if you do. Phone Guy tells us that if we flash the animatronics on a camera, then it will slow them down from their approach. But if you do that, not only are you wasting precious battery on your flashlight that could be used to save yourself instead, you're wasting precious time in the cameras that could be used to wind up the music box instead. It's not just that you don't have to use any other mechanics in the game, it's that at higher levels, you literally can't. Every other mechanic is pointless and harmful. All you can do is wind the music box and flash your doors. Otherwise, you'll fall victim to many of the lackluster Before I go too deep here, let's look at FNAF 1, a game that came out a few months prior, just to prove that I'm not judging it based off of its modern contemporaries. Look at these jump scares. And no, I won't be playing sound, so don't worry. I will be playing the jump scares at regular speed though, so warning for that. Skip to here if you don't want to see it. These look good. These are scary. That little bit of motion blur, that frantic movement. Not to mention, in FNAF 1, this is the first time you really see the full model of these characters. It's a reveal and a scare all wrapped into one. It's just great. Now, how did Scott follow up these realistic, pretty good jump scares? Well, what the hell is this? Most of these are just taking the PNG of the character and stretching it at the corner. And when it isn't something like that, it's a sliding in, chopping animation cycle. Look, I'm not saying every animatronic needs to be fully animated and articulated to be scary, but like, you gotta try a little bit harder, right? And it's not even like he didn't have the processing power or know how to do this. FNAF 1 does it way better. And FNAF 3, while having worse jump scares, at least has more articulated animatronics in Springtrap. Even worse, the whole point of a jump scare is it's the punch to release your tension. You build up this horror and tension builds and then finally, jump scare, release. But in FNAF 2, because the gameplay is so frantic, you never even build up that tension. So it's just gameplay, jump scare. And there is no time to build up anything. And not only is there no time to build tension, but every jump scare you get is expected because you see the character before you get jump scared. Sure, if you're really playing badly, it might come out of nowhere, but the whole point of FNAF 1 jump scares is they'll catch you off guard. FNAF 2, you see the character before they jump scare you. Frankly, half the time, pulling down the monitor and seeing somebody in your office is scarier than the jump scare itself. But even in a game like FNAF 6, which also admittedly has some pretty lame jump scares, it could be made up for with the models that are jump scaring you. So what are FNAF 2's models? The toys don't work. I'm sorry. I get the point. I know what they're going for, but it just isn't scary. Toy Freddy is too jolly. Even when his eyes go black and he's standing in front of you all twitching, it doesn't work. Toy Bonnie is too silly, and Toy Chica removing her beak is pretty good, I'll give them that, but the rest of her just doesn't work. This is the perfect time to bring up that at certain angles you see them on in the cameras, they work. This shot of Toy Bonnie is creepy, I appreciate that, but we don't get to see that during gameplay, because why would you use the cameras? You're wasting time, go wind the music box. What about Mangle? Conceptually, I love Mangle, and in the other games that they show up in, I love them there, especially in Help Wanted when they recreate FNAF 2 and you get to see Mangle slowly crawling towards you. But in FNAF 2, they're okay. They're kind of just there. Balloon Boy is a nothing burger. He just shows up. He's not scary, he doesn't even kill you, and he's just there. The marionette has a good mask design, but the body I feel is lackluster. I get it's supposed to be this minimalistic puppet, but it's just not enough. Well, what about the withered animatronics? 50% of them are great. Withered Foxy is kind of lame, to be honest, in a way that I can't pinpoint. There's just this aura of not scary about him. Maybe it's his facial expression, I don't really know. This might be a me problem. Withered Chica is in a weird place too. Ultimate Custom Night makes really good use of her model and makes her scary, but maybe it's just the way the model is used in this game. Something about the T-posing chicken just isn't scary. Although I do have to admit, and to close the compliment sandwich, Withered Freddy and Withered Bonnie are some of the best models in the entire franchise. And conceptually and visually, Shadow Bonnie and RXQ look great. I have to admit it, this is good design. FNAF 2 is fundamentally not good. From the gameplay to the aesthetics to the sound design. It introduced some great lore and it gave us a couple good designs to look at, but outside of that there's really nothing worthwhile here. But again, the lore introduced in this game is also noteworthy as well, especially with things like Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie. If you want to know more about them and learn what they are, go ahead and watch that video linked right there. In the meantime, shout out to the best patrons, the Toasted Slices, Emberisk, Zenith, Raven Eris, Charlie Bean, Lovey Puppy, Stormachow, Just BKZ, Chickpea, Lola Fembo, The Viper 26, Lehan, 1Un4, Dionysus, James Reiner, Luce Harriet, and Emily de la Sierra. And until next time, as always, stay toasty, Slices.